So with me from Healing the Fray, Jeff Sandoval and Mike Araiza. How you guys doing, man?
We are excited to be here. We're grateful. Hello to everybody. Hello to all of our music brothers and sisters and family in the East Coast and everywhere that this show is broadcast. We're honored to be here. Thank you for having us so much. Worldwide, buddy.
Worldwide, yeah. And thank you very much for doing it. And I'm excited because let me give you a little background here. I came upon the song Mercy a while back, and I think indirectly through Frank Hannon, because I follow things that Frank does, and I know that you guys played on Six String Soldiers with Frank. And I heard the song, and immediately I said, bam. And I'm like, this is a kick-ass song. The two of you guys met in 2007. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And
we met in 2007. It was kind of cool because the sound man for Alice Cooper, his name is James Wood, and he's from Albuquerque as well. And he actually, I was out of the music business for quite some time, and Mike and I just kind of stumbled across through James Wood. He wanted to put together like a little local project that we could do some shows around town, and that's where Mike and I met, and we've been inseparable ever since. Yeah.
Well, you guys are a good combination. Now, who else plays in the band? Because I know it's just you two. And I know that, you consider your producer, Chris Collier, a third member of the band.
Yes.
He's a multi-instrumentalist from what I understand. So,
yep.
Jeff, you sing. Mike, you play the guitar. Who did the drumming? Who did the bass parts on the album?
Sure, that was Chris Collier.
He did it all.
And that's the alchemy of what Healing the Fray is and the old adage, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And over time, we realized that the core of who we are and our culmination of how we make our music is the process of the riffs, the vocals, and the one thing that ties it all together, and that's Chris Collier.
What happens when you guys go out and play? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, you've only been using the name Healing the Fray for about a year?
Right, yeah.
Okay. So let's say last year, for instance, when you go out and play, who comes, who plays bass, who plays drums? How do you do that?
Well, we have a list of very talented musicians that we've kind of already aligned with that are learning the music, know their parts. Mike has this great idea of hiring some great backup singers from the towns that we're going to be rolling into to kind of help hit those backups, so it sounds like church. So that's important. So we're very fortunate, man. I mean, we've contacted a number of people that we've met and networked with over the past 12 years. So we have some very talented people lined up.
Now, let me ask you, by doing that, do you think you can get that exact groove that you have on the album that you had with Chris playing drums and bass?
We do. Yes, we do, because Chris Collier has been a large part of the recommendations.
Okay.
And, the technical oversight. So his input and participation does not just stop at the album, but it starts with the feedback of rehearsal tapes and stuff like that. He's kind of like the head coach. Jeff and I are adamant that the integrity of the album is transparent when it comes to performing live. There's a lot of backup vocals there. There's a lot of counter melodies in the guitar. We've worked it all out to make sure there's no gaps.
Mike, I want to talk about your background. I know, and always correct me if I'm wrong, but one of your big breaks came from a guitar contest that Frank Hannon was judging. Is that correct?
It is, yeah. I was actually at home. A buddy of mine called. It's like, hey, dude, Tesla's in town. And if you go down to the guitar contest, you get tickets to the show. I'm like, I'll be there in 10 minutes.
Because you had no money in your pocket, right?
I had no money. I just gone through the divorce. So I went down. I took my guitar, and I was fortunate enough to win. And after it was over, I'm hanging out with Frank Hannon and Dave Rude from Tesla. And Tom Zutaut was there, believe it or not. Tom Zutaut, famous for Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
Of course,
Jeff, another thing I want to bring up that I did not know, that I read, is that at a young age, you lost 70% of your hearing, and a lot of what you sing and feel is off of vibration.
Yeah, that's true. I actually had a really terrible ear infection when I was really young, and to the point to where it kind of deteriorated my hearing bone inside my inner ear. So it's kind of a trip. I feel a vibration. It's the strangest thing. I could tell who walks into the room just by the vibration changing. But it's easy also to find where I fall in, which is kind of neat and kind of unique, I guess. But music heals the fray, right? That's the whole reason why we called our band Healing the Fray, because no matter where you are in life, you could always turn to music, and it gives you that escape or that message or that lift that you need to accomplish or to continue to move forward. I mean, it consoles you, it nurtures you, it feeds your soul.
Yes.
And we really hope that in one way or another that our music does that somehow to someone, and that's the whole goal.
Now, the song Healing the Fray and In God's Time, correct me if I'm wrong, you wrote those songs in 2016?
Yeah, that's about right.
That's about right, yeah.
Okay, so they were basically the first two that made it onto this album, because the rest of the songs I see the copyrights are 2018, 2019.
Right,
yeah.
So what was it that you had about those two songs that you had those songs first?
Well, In God's Time, the reason why, well, Mike had this great, I'll let him talk about how he came up with the music, but during that time, everybody was asking us, so when are you and Frank and Mike going to write a Six String Soldiers 2? When are you guys going to put out a new album? And so it was just ongoing, and that's why I kind of came up, it's time to let it go. What could have been? It's just the message that had to happen. I mean, that time in our life was very special. It was quite the journey, and we're so grateful that we had that.
My buddy Clint Lowry put on social media that he was free with nothing to do as well. So I called him. I was like, "Hey man, let's calibrate. Let's iron sharps iron, right?" So I sent him the riff and asked him for his feedback on it, and then he sent it back, and he typed on his phone in good time and autocorrect it in God's time. And he was he's like, that was a typo. Hope you don't mind. I was like, no, dude, I love it. And I kept the idea and I sent it to Jeff, and that's how that title came. So.
And during that time, we were really trying to find a sound, because we're always challenging ourselves to grow in a different direction, or how do we up ourselves? And that's why I think those two songs kind of set the bar of a direction.
Right.
You think, yeah?
Yeah. And speaking of like the copyrights of songs that were first, The Good Fight was actually on an EP that we put out prior to this album when we weren't sure of how we were going to brand ourselves. When we just put our pictures on it, we called it Project Playlist. It was a project of 5 songs. And The Good Fight was on it. And The Good Fight is actually the song where it all really kind of like
that moment where everything encapsulates and crystallizes.
Yeah, the synergy was right.
Everything was there, and we were like, that's it. That's our sound. That's what we're going to continue to do. So The Good Fight is on this album. It had already been previously recorded, but it was never released digitally. So that's why we put it on this album. And it's the people that really know us, it's their favorite song. And we're even actually thinking about doing a music video for it.
Jeff, I know your influences: Paul Rogers, Brad Delp, Lou Gramm, Joe Lynn Turner. Now, unlike guys like Robert Plant, Steven Tyler, Jeff Keith, Mark Liddell from Dirty Honey that have unique voices, you do have a voice like those guys. I remember in the 70s going, if I could sing like Paul Rogers, everything would be great. And before I actually knew that Brad Delp was one of your influences, there's a part of Ain't Giving Up. I went, that sounds like Boston right there. So, yeah, without it, and it wasn't a rip-off, but I was just like, yeah, I heard it. And then when I read it, I was like, oh my God. I'm like, there you go. And you do have that quality voice of those guys, because Paul Rogers, Lou Gramm, those guys are phenomenal singers. Brad Delp was a phenomenal singer, like a true voice, not a screamer, not a, some people have unique voices, and that's great. I love Steven Tyler. He's unique. He's got a screamer voice, but he doesn't have that sort of voice that Lou Gramm has or Paul Rogers has. There's a huge, huge difference there.
I don't know what to say. That's freaking awesome, dude.
I got to tell you, when it comes to writing music, I'm very fortunate to have this lifelong journey with Jeff, to know that everything's capable, right? When we write music, he always asks me, tell me the vibe. What were you feeling, right? So like our process is I get the riff, I get the intro, the verse, the pre-chorus, and the chorus, right? And I program some drums to it and put bass or whatever, and I basically send him 90 seconds worth of music. And what he asks of me is a working title, and that title is supposed to be part of the story of what I was feeling. What was going on in my mind? What is it a reflection of? And an associated artist, and that's the way we think,
So, Jeff, that's where you take the vocals from. When Mike says, okay, here's where I was coming from, here's the title, so on, then you sit down and write the vocals?
Yeah, it's a vibe, man. I have to fall into it. The music has to speak to me, because Mike will send me an idea every day, practically.
Yeah.
And in some cases, I'm like, well, this, like Mercy was just greasy, had such a cool funkified riff. And actually, the way I approached Mercy, I wanted to do like a character vocal over it. So there was this swagger, this vibe. Better be, best be good. It's just, I don't know how we came up with it, honestly. It's just,
I can't stress enough that I believe Healing the Fray has a sound. When you hear it, it's Healing the Fray. But I do hear strains of Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, Velvet Revolver, Stone Temple Pilots in some of the songs. Am I correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Yeah, dude. Yes.
Yeah, well, those bands were really influential on us. I mean, they had a major impact.
To me, the 90s was a movement of music that was similar to the late 60s and 70s. Yeah.
I want to talk about the song Outside Looking In. And from what I understand, that's about some tragedies from some friends. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Of course.
Go for it.
It was, we lost, some people that were very dear to us, unfortunately to suicide.
Mm.
And it was, the riff itself, The riff actually came. I actually put it on my Instagram before the tragedy happened, and it was just me playing the acoustic guitar, and I put it up on Instagram, and I had like all these comments and direct messages. I even had like a friend call me, and she was like, "That's freaking beautiful." Like, what are you talking about? And had mentioned the riff, and so I sent to Jeff, says, "Hey, just put this in the potential list." And then shortly thereafter, tragedy struck, and just out of emotion of watching, the family go through that, and the emotion of just the tragic, unnecessary loss. Mm-hmm. And it was someone that Jeff and I knew. We knew the family. It was wrapped up in emotion. I was just like, this song, we're gonna write it for this person.
Well, the album's very well rounded to where you have your rockers and then you have, slower or softer type of things. So I could see certain songs. You never know where anything's going to hit, but I can certainly see certain songs hitting certain genres or certain places in the country or whatever. It's, it's very well rounded. There's,
Nice.
There's no doubt. This Little Pill, talk to me about that.
Wow. Well, This Little Pill, man, there's, if you listen, if you read, there's a lot of negativity out there, and it's been going on for a while. Mm-hmm. And I'm just a little fed up with it. I just want to get back to people acting cordial to each other the best way that they can. So that song was me kind of venting about the powers that be that just take us for granted. Mm. So, and the riff is killer. I just love the riff that much. But, it's just, did it go to your head? It's like when you're in a powerful position, power goes to your head. And time after time, whether it's somebody's getting indicted, somebody's getting thrown in jail, somebody's, there's a lot of that out there right now. So, it's just kind of thrown out there in your face. And it can relate to anyone. I mean, or any type of relationship. But that was kind of the spin that I took on that particular vibe.
Yeah, I agree. It can. And again, great lyrics.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's also like, Jeff and I, we have a small circle of brothers and sisters, and we hold each other accountable. And so it's also a accountability check for me to listen to it about how I carry myself and be mindful of what I say. Yeah, it's important. In the era of hyperconnection, we hold each other accountable because we're not only that, all of us are parents.
Yeah.
We're called to guide. Like it or not, we're getting older. We're elders. We're supposed to provide guidance, not programming, to the youth and to our peers. There's a big difference between programming and guidance. So that guidance comes from self-discipline and self-reflection.
The more I listen to the album, the more I hear. The songs are really good and you can put them on and dig it. But the more you listen, the more you hear, and, reading the lyrics, the more you get out of the song. All right. I have had you guys on the phone for a while, but before I go, and I could talk to you guys about, for hours on this. You guys are great at this.
You can't forget about Ain't Giving Up.
Look, I saved the best for last, okay?
All right.
I got to tell you guys, I can't get past that song. I love that song. It is my favorite song on the album. As I let the album play, every single time I go, all right, don't play Ain't Giving Up twice, 3 times, 4 times. Go to the next track. I can't do it. Okay? It is a killer freaking song. That is a hit song. I cannot get over that song. I play that song literally 4 or 5 times in a row. Today I was like, Jay, stop. You need to absorb the rest of the album. You're going to be talking to these guys tonight.
Yeah, man. That's actually, good. Dare I say, that's my favorite track. That's my ringtone when I call Jeff. That's what he hears.
Is it really?
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I know we've talked about a lot of things, but that right there is what makes me tick. That right there, if I could, that is what is music and rock and roll and fun.
Yeah.
That's Prince, that's Kiss, that's Lenny Kravitz, that's Aerosmith, Black Crowes, that's Boston, that's our brothers Tesla. I mean, that's everything all in one.
It's so funny about that song because Mike kind of snuck that in when we were at the studio with Chris Collier. And I had an idea of what to do with that song, but I didn't have anything finished.
Yeah.
So they track it, and Chris is like, hey, Jeff, you have any lyrics? And I'm like, I got a vibe.
Yeah. So what Jeff is saying is that was not in the pre-production list. We didn't prepare for that song in Albuquerque. I put it on the hard drive, and I sent it to Dropbox without giving, because Jeff was like, oh, that's cool, but, you know, he wasn't feeling it. So when we get to Los Angeles, Santa Clarita specifically, we get in the studio, Collier turns around, and just like, so what do you want to work on first? And it was called it had a different working title at the time. And then Collier's like, he names that track, and just looks at me, he's like, wait a minute, how come I'm not in this? But I think that's where the rocket ride comes from it.
Yeah.
Because it was not really preconceived. That's why it has that lively feeling, and that's why it has that role where it keeps getting better and better, because the synergy and the energy of all of us working at it organically.
You got to feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it has that live feeling because we did it so live. There was not a whole lot of pre-production in it, and it's got a tribute, believe it or not, to the Rolling Stones in there with the way I tune the guitar. You know, it's got that honky tonk woman tuning too.
Yeah, don't ask Mike how he tunes his guitar. He doesn't even know how he does it.
Well, good, because I wouldn't understand it. So.
Yeah, man, and that Healer's Coming. We're a traveling show, man. I mean, and we firmly believe that musicians are healers. And every time, if you want to feel good, you go to a concert. You can have the worst freaking week in your entire life, but if you go to that show and you get turned on, man, everything just washes away.
Yeah, it does.
So, and that was a tip of the hat to Aerosmith, you know, that Healer Coming.
Yeah, that makes sense now that you say it. Yes.
Yeah,
totally
man,
makes sense. A little Last Child, so to speak. Mama.
Sweet home.
Right.
All that stuff, right? So I was thinking, well, shit, man, since I might as well throw the kitchen sink at this and see what sticks. There's a little bit of Paul Rogers, tip of the hat to Paul Rogers. Of course, Brad Delp is always in the back of my mind, but like that, ain't giving up. And it's all Paul Rogers that I'm feeling. And wow, man, it's a trip. It's a trip what we're getting from you, man, and it's the reason why we do this, Jay.
First and foremost, I'm a fan, and I think that's important. I've always been a music lover. But a rocket ride is a good way, to describe that song. And, definitely in your guitar playing, but certainly in your singing, Jeff, you really sing from the heart. There's emotion. That's what I feel off this whole record. You can feel it. Pun intended. Feel it, You could totally feel it. And, look, I always say it's not what you sing, it's how you sing it. It's not what you play, it's how you play it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm so glad we got to talk. You guys really seem to be level. And what I see with you guys in closing is, if nothing else, no matter what happens, you've done this and you've left your mark.
Nice, yes.
You know what I mean? And that's what's important. At the end of the day, when we're all gone, okay, people will go back and say, yeah, Healing the Fray. And they'll listen to this music will live forever. So regardless of what happens, you have made your mark. I mean, I want to say it's a masterpiece because I really think it's that good. And I'm not trying to sound cocky, but I have a good ear for music and for songs. Again, I'm all about the song. And these are good songs, man. So.
Wow.
Thank you for the great privilege of being part of your show. And thank you for all that you do for music, having the passion that you do to invest the time to look for new music. That is, that's how I got turned on to so much music throughout my life. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for providing that service to the brother and sisterhood of rock and roll to cascade that music that you discover to everybody else to enlighten them. I appreciate that. We appreciate that.
Amen to that, man.
Yeah, and you are very welcome, and I can tell that you guys are sincere, but you know what? It's a two-way street, because if you're not making the music, I can't find it. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Thank you, man. We appreciate you, brother.
Guys, it's been a sincere pleasure. Thank you so much. I love talking rock and roll with guys, and you guys got your head on in the right places, man. I look forward to hopefully next year you guys making it out to this coast, and I will definitely be coming to see you, man.
We'll be there.
Hey, stay in touch, man.
Stay in touch. We'll talk to you soon.
I definitely will. Thanks, guys, so much.
Thank you. We'll
Likewise. Take care.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.